Welcome back to the Woman Experience. I am so glad you're here. We are about a month away to Christmas. Who knew that it's like this year just like, I don't know, just swooshed by. But I'm so glad we are having conversations that will prime you for 2025. We've been on the career track and talking everything in between our careers and how we can be better. And someone was just saying to me how God makes things beautiful in His own time. And I am so glad because for the very first time on this channel, we have a guest, someone I consider to be my friend. We've lost touch somewhere along the way, but we're going to have great conversations on career, because what I want for this channel is for you to have an idea about how you could approach your career, how you can do better, how you can be better, how you can take the next step. And today we are going to talk anything in between perfectionism, imposter syndrome, how it shows up at work. And if you know a woman who would benefit from this kind of content, oh my God, it's one of those days, just bear with me. Tell them to subscribe. Please do share a link, because we want to make sure that we are getting this information to as many women. But first things first, karibu sana Rahab.
Thank you.
I couldn't be more thrilled that you're here. Rahab is a HR professional who has been in the field for quite a while, worked with amazing organizations, still continues to do so. And one of the things that she told me is that she really values about providing spaces and platforms for a wholesome approach for people at work. So introduce yourself, Rahab, and then tell me a little bit about the wholesome approach and why it really matters.
Okay. Like Edith mentioned, I'm Rahab Wainaina. I'm a HR professional. I have been in the field for a couple of years. I think it's going to 12 years now, if not 12 years already. And I really value a wholesome approach to people at work. And what this means is that when you do not take care of the individual, they will not deliver when it comes to work and the technical aspect of the work. So it is important that the individual be wholesome first and foremost, after which they will be able to deliver. So it is taking care of the individual in a wholesome manner. And also, like we were discussing earlier, there's the notion that there's an organization that, is providing everything. It is probably one of the best employers. However, if you as an individual have not found yourself, are not aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your areas of improvements are, you can be in the best of environments, but then you may not be able to grow as you ought to. So for me, it helps that the individual is first and foremost self-aware, is wholesome as an individual, and that way they would be able to deliver even better at work.
Oh, and I love that, because a lot of people, especially for me, there was a time I was pegged on, I want to find the best employer with the best culture and with the best pay, packages. And while that is true and that's important, you have to start with yourself. Yes. And I love that. And it's we'll do a whole of unpacking about that, especially around perfectionism and the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, from your viewpoint, when you think about, because you've said 12 years, you've worked in organizations. If you were to, I want us to begin with a punch. If someone wasn't to watch the rest of this video and think, these are the 2 to 3 things that I would impart on them to think about at least in their career, what would they be?
Well, 3 things come to mind. 1, self-mastery. You need to master yourself. What are the things that you're not comfortable with? What are your boundaries? What are the things you cannot put up with? So self-mastery is awareness on first of all, yourself, and also the things that affect you, the people that affect you. The other thing is on being authentic. You sleep much better at night when you are authentic. You do not have, you do not have, you do not have things that you have to constantly think about, because when you are not authentic, then you're not yourself. So you constantly have to remind yourself 100%. On how to act, how to be with certain people. Then the other thing I would say is continuous improvement in all aspects of your life. It's not always about work. There could be your personal life, your social life. How are you continually improving yourself? It could be that additional skill. It can be something as simple as learning how to cook something that you do not know how to cook. It could be going to places that you have not been to, exploring a hobby that is of interest to you. So continuous improvement. So that's what I would say would be the 3 things.
Oh my, I love this. Self-mastery, authenticity, and the other one is
continuous improvement.
Which I'm so passionate about, and I'm so glad you're here, because you would think that a career professional would tell you to focus on like, these are the things, in your career or in organizations. But again, the self is really coming out, because once you lock in on that, then it becomes much better. But I want us to begin this conversation on, when we connected, you told me, you know what, Edith, one of the things that speak out to me is perfectionism and imposter syndrome. So tell me a little bit about why that spoke to you as a person.
It spoke to me because we have so many people out there who pursue perfectionism. And really, it's an ideal. We are human. And when you look at I looked up the word perfect, and the Merriam-Webster dictionary described it as entirely without fault or defect. I mean, tell me someone who is without fault or defect. So it's general. Actually, there is no one who is like that, as long as you're human. So for me, pursuing perfectionism it's a myth. However, we interchangeably use that word, you're a perfectionist, to mean you produce good quality work, you're accurate, you're a planner. So we substitute quality or accuracy and whatever other synonyms you can use to describe that to mean, to say that someone is perfect. So generally that is what happens. So it means a lot to me, and I like talking about it because, first of all, we need to be aware that we cannot be perfect. However, we can always aspire to be better. So it is a journey, a never-ending journey. And what happens is that, I don't know whether we've mentioned imposter syndrome at this point, but then I can as well mention it. But when it comes to now imposter syndrome, when you are experiencing imposter syndrome and you are a perfectionist, it's even worse, because one, it becomes debilitating.
It is.
You do not want to make a mistake. You do not want to risk. And imposter syndrome should not be there too long.
Yeah.
It is normal. It is common. However, it should only last a short while, if possible, the shortest time possible. Because if it lasts too long, it affects your performance. And now bring a perfectionist who is experiencing imposter syndrome, it becomes something else. They will not be able to get out of that cycle of constantly checking themselves and constantly considering what others are saying about them, or what other people's views of them are. So for me, this topic means a lot because it impedes growth.
It does. Yeah.
And I wish you can break out of this.
Yeah. And talk to me, because you ended it quite well. You talked about growth. So you want to have a growth mindset, which is all about becoming better. But then, so how do you realize, or how do you then catch yourself when it's not just becoming better, you are constantly now, the voices in your head telling you you're not there yet. Like, talk to me the balance between becoming better and being a perfectionist. I don't know how to, because there's times in my career where I know I should do better, I should challenge myself, and maybe there's environments, people challenging me. But then also, when do I realize, oh, now this is becoming extreme? Even when I'm better, I don't even realize it. I just now want to be a perfectionist.
So there's a positive aspect and there's a negative aspect. So what I'd say is, you will know you're becoming better when it's positive. Say, for example, you are aiming for that ideal to be better at a certain skill, to be better in your work. If let's use a simple example, like writing an email, and you do the draft, you check it once, you check it twice. Let's hope that it does not go to 3, 4, 5 times. And when you are checking, you're checking out of the need for you to communicate effectively. Now that is positive. But when you're checking and the feeling you have is a feeling of fear, that I do not want so and so to bring out a mistake or bring up a mistake from this email or question something. When it is out of fear, that is negative. So that is what we need to fight. However, the positive one, it is good. You want to communicate effectively and you need to keep at it. So you need to check what it is that you're feeling whenever you have that feeling of, let me do this. You're overdoing something. In this case, the overdoing of checking those emails. So you need to check, what is my driver?
What's the trigger?
Yes. Is it fear? Is it, in this case, being a better communicator? So that would be that would help and would give you guidance as to what you need to do and whether you need to stop or improve so that it's not negative, and to keep going if it is a positive thing.
Oh my God. And I just had a light bulb moment. A lot of the time when you're chasing perfectionism, like you said, it's chasing the validation of others.
Yes, precisely.
It's just, connected the dots, where it's constantly the cheering of the gallery of those outside. And it's not so much for yourself and your growth.
True.
Yeah?
Very true. You hit it you hit the nail on the head. That's true.
Because a lot of, I think, what I was taught in aspiring for a career, it's the validation of make your manager happy. Shine so that you can get promoted. Talk to me a bit about that validation, because you've now just said it, and now it's triggered. Like, it's good to perform and others see it, but when it is driven by others' validation, then that can be a sign of perfectionism or like playing to the gallery.
Yeah, that is true. And you've used the best word that I could possibly use to describe this: validation. External validation is there. True. We have different personalities. We get our energy from different places. However, it is not sustainable. What if the audience is not there? And more often they're not there.
And they come and go.
Oh yes, they do. What if you lose favor with them? What happens? Do you lose that validation? So in all of this, we need to work at getting this validation. And I don't know whether that would be the right thing to say. I'd say you need to be okay within yourself. You need to do things for yourself. And when that is the root, then it will show. You do not have to work too hard to please others, because getting that external validation is partly pleasing. When you're doing something for the quality of it, then it spreads and it shows. You do not have to fight too much about it. people will recognize it.
Yes.
Because the motivation, the energy is coming from within. And that is sustainable. Even when you're alone in the room, even when there's no one watching, that is what is sustainable.
Oh my God. I love being on this channel because I have so many light bulb moments, and I could tell moments, I was flashing back to moments in my career where you're seeking and it's not sustainable. Like you're saying, people come and go, managers change, organizations change. So you will keep hopping from one, looking for this, the loudest claps. And you're always frustrated because you're seeking something that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I love that. But let's go now a layer deeper to the root cause of this perfectionism. And one of the things that I was thinking about is also that cultural inheritance, especially for women, because especially for us millennials or those who, we were told, and even now we are told by our parents, work hard, go to that office, become the best so that you can get promoted, get money, get a better life than I did. So is it more of a generational inheritance? And then also women are constantly bombarded with, you have to work twice as hard. I think that thing has never left us. So you have to just go and make sure. And while it's a good thing, do you think it shows up in perfectionism, or do you think it's also conditioning or inheritance? I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure you know a bit about that.
Yeah. So yes, it is partly inheritance.
Yeah.
And from how the parenting happened, how we were socialized as women, girls, then we were brought up to be prim and proper. There was a certain way we were supposed to act. And when someone went off track, then they would be labeled. That's where you would find the tomboy, for example, and such other labels. However, thankfully, now people are more open to letting their girls have cars for toys, for example.
Yeah.
And like previously where it was, the default was a doll. So if a girl showed interest in, fixing things, parents, more and more parents have been open to letting their girls explore with the machinery and such other things. So yes, that contributes. However, I'm happy because more and more parents, and I think maybe it's also because we millennials are parents, we are letting our children explore and get into things that ordinarily we would not have been allowed to get into. So yes, it is partly that inheritance.
Yeah, and also how much of it is it the conditioning of the workplace? Because that's what I want us to also talk about.
Okay.
Because I also feel like some organizations, especially in the corporate world, can be culprits of like, by the way, if you're going to miss that promotion. If we don't see you grinding, and you talked about, for example, just self-improvement, there's no space for that. So there's just a perfectionist mindset in organizations. I feel like that's also part of the problem. Or what have you seen in your practice?
Yes, so again, I will put it in two ways. There's a perfectionism that some organizations promote, which is generally, quality of work, accuracy, and so on. So that is positive and that is good. However, this perfectionism where you are not to be at fault. You are supposed to produce a perfect report, no mistakes whatsoever, no room for error. While that is an ideal, it creates a lot of fear. It creates a certain obedience without question. And you need questions in organizations because it's from questions that come from people who are doing the work that you get to change things for the better. It's part of feedback. Those are the organizations where you would also not get a lot of creativity or innovation. Because creativity and innovation is about trying something several times in order for it to work, maybe even the 100th time.
100%.
And what are these things between 1 and 99? They are mistakes.
Failures,
you see? And they're also risks. So for those organizations that promote that kind of perfectionism that is negative in this sense, there is limited growth. Even in the organization itself, the business may not grow as much because innovation has been curtailed, because people are fearful. And the other thing is that at the individual level, the people do not grow as much.
Yeah.
Someone may be in a role for many years, 10 years, because they have perfected what is required for that role. They may fear getting into another role, whether it is a horizontal move or whether it is a vertical move. They're afraid because when they get into another role, they may be required to learn a few things, which will come to mistakes naturally.
Cost, yeah.
And they fear that. So they stay in a role for so long because it is safe. And that safety is not good, not for the organization and definitely not for the individual. So that is how I would put it.
And it's interesting, perfectionism is also a sort of safety net for some people.
Yes.
Like, I know when I clock in, when I switch on my laptop, I know everything that I'm supposed to do. And it becomes sort of like the hill you die on, because Edith is known for this, and so it becomes sort of, you box yourself in.
Yes.
You also box yourself in.
You do.
Which is so interesting. And I'm wondering, you talked about the email as an example. What are some of the patterns you've noticed in perfectionism, whether within, individuals or organizations, systems in place that, encourage perfectionism? How has it manifested? Because I want someone to listen to this and be like, am I, or can I do better? Are there areas I could improve on? Yeah.
One of the things that comes to mind is over-consulting. You're doing this project and you have been put together with a couple other of your colleagues, and you have been told that this is what you're supposed to do. You know what you're supposed to do. There are a few things you may need to consult. But now you end up going to person A, going to person B, going back to the project, and you still feel that you need validation from person C.
Yeah.
Person C gives you their thoughts. Then you realize, but person D worked on a similar project last year. Let me go to them. Meanwhile, the timeline for the project is running out.
Yeah.
And you hardly have time. So you see, even the perfectionism that you pursue so that you do it the right way, it may be compromised, because maybe by the time you are done with this over-consulting, it is 1 week to the project being delivered or required to be delivered. So all these things are counterproductive. So over-consulting. The other one would be over-review of the report. You have done your report, you feel it's okay, but you keep going at it. It's good to sleep over it and wake up the following morning and look through it. But now when you do that 1 week in a row, then that's a problem.
Some form of paralysis of not getting work out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it works against you. It does. Because all this time you're spending over consulting and over reviewing, you could be doing something else. So something is suffering, or something is not being done by virtue of you taking too much time over consulting and over reviewing.
Is that some procrastination of sorts, or is it different?
I think it is different. It's not so much procrastination, because it is not intentional that you do not do these other tasks. You just want to deliver perfect,
pristine.
Yes, a perfect report. And that perfect email, which, like we said, really it's an ideal.
And does it play out? Because this is so profound for me. Does it play out even in important conversations at work?
Yes.
Where, there's so many. I've been in places where I want to have that talk on promotion or on something, a project I want to take on, but just the paralysis of how am I going to frame it? Let me wait for a perfect, important conversations never get done.
Yes, that is very true. It affects conversations as well. It is okay to rehearse. Say, for example, it is a salary conversation that you want to have with your manager. it is okay to rehearse, get your points, what are the points that you want to put across, get your facts. And, you can do a little rehearsal in front of a mirror, with a friend, however best you want to do it or whatever suits you. However, if you keep relooking and rehashing that conversation, then it even loses flavor.
Days, weeks, months, sometimes.
Yes. So we need to be careful about that.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about what you were saying about this idea of over consulting, over reviewing, and something that I've been thinking a lot lately about is this likability factor. And we've talked about you wanting to be liked, to be a people person at work, which is it's not a bad thing. You want to be the person that people is approachable, you're a team player, all of that. But if it's also overdone because you're a perfectionist, you want to be likable. And talk to me a little bit about have you seen patterns where, especially women, because we want to appear a certain way and we want to be perfectionist in a certain way, we want to be likable, we want to appear in a certain way, can impede that next step of just tackling things and not being a perfectionist, but just going ahead and doing things and becoming whatever you want to be in your career. Because I feel like women suffer from that ability factor a lot. And we've all had instances where women are told, oh, she's, women bear the brunt of when they go the other way. What's the balance for women? It's something I think about, but these are real conversations in the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, being likable is a good thing. However, consciously, tirelessly working towards it, it being the only preoccupation that you have, then that is a problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, we have to be likable in order to work with people. But how about it being your personality, how you intend to relate with people, as opposed to you pursuing it so that you get you get to the next level. It comes naturally, and people can tell. They can tell this one is trying too much.
Yeah.
People can tell these things. So if you make it a part of your personality, if and of course that takes work, because you have to know, first of all, I don't know if there's a likability scale, but how am I relating with other people? Just being kind. I would stay away from calling it likable. I'll just say being kind, because kindness is all encompassing. When you're kind, then all the other things, fall in line. So what I would say is, when you are making this the only thing that you are doing, whether it is at work, when you're with your colleagues and so on, it actually stops you from focusing on the real things, which would be what would give you that promotion from doing good quality work. So be kind, do your work as it should be done, go the extra mile, and things will fall in line. Yeah.
So focus on just being kind.
Yeah.
Don't again, this a lot is pointing to validation. I want so and so to like me.
Yeah.
I want so and so to, because, and without knowing, by the way, we put certain people in the organization on a pedestal.
Oh yes, that's very common.
We are calling ourselves out, and we've all been there, but because this is the person who is in charge of my promotion. And when you focus too much on that, you lose all the goodness of your own growth, knowing yourself better. And we'll talk more about now the practical tips. So I want to talk about the fear of failure or rejection, because it's an underlying monster that, again, brings out, apart from validation, is this: I cannot fail. I want to be pristine, clean, deliver, get that promotion, or, just shine at the workplace. But talk to me a little bit about how it can impede, how it manifests, and how you see it, because I think people just don't want to fail. And they don't want to be rejected as Edith who led this project and it never really, like the project you are talking about, and it never really, came through. So how do women, have you seen people approach that, the fear of failure?
Before I go into that, I would like to first of all talk about who gives you your identity. Some of these things stem from the core, our core. Who gives you your identity? From whom do you get that strength? Is it your manager in the case of work? Is it your parents? Is it someone who already there is, they have their own insecurities? If it is them that give you your identity, then naturally some of these things will be transient and they will come to you. So I would leave that out there, because that is something that we all need to ask ourselves. Who gives us our identity? Because whoever gives us our identity is the one that helps us navigate some of these issues. For example, if I could talk about myself when it comes to identity, for me, God gives me my identity. So when all these things, say for example, something comes up and there is an issue, that is where I drew my strength. And there is nothing that can be said, whether it is demeaning, because there's a lot of that for women as well. There are things that can be demeaning that can be said to you. And when you are in that frame of mind that I draw my identity from my God, then what does he say about me as his daughter? That for sure goes above what is happening in my environment.
100%.
So who gives you your identity? That is something that we need to be aware of. We need to assess. And if at all it is something that can be shaken, then we too will be shaken.
100%.
But if it is something that is solid, then for sure you will also be solid. We still have our humanness, granted, but it will be a humanness that is informed, if I can say that. We will have that guiding light. We will have that calm and peace. Then going to what are, some of the things that I have seen when it comes to fear of failure. So for sure, the fear of rejection, borrowing from what I've just talked about, is that naturally when you are at the risk of overdoing the word validation.
No,
but
let it come up, girl, because this is one of the root causes.
Yeah. So I'll talk about it. I'll mention it. So when you are in this place where you want to seek that validation, obviously when you do not get it, you feel the rejection and you have that fear of failure. What will they say about me? How will they take me? Will their opinion of me change? And to be honest, Edith, you'll be surprised that some of these people that we have put on this very high pedestal, they do not even have time to think about some of your actions.
That's a harsh truth.
Yes, it's the harsh truth. If it is a manager whose span of control is, say, 100 people, they cannot possibly be thinking about all these 100 people. So fear of failure, yes, it is normal. Fear of rejection too is normal. And we just need to find out where it is coming from. It could be insecurities from past experiences, and it also could be fear that has been earned in your current environment. Maybe you came in very confident.
Yeah.
Like, I know quite a number of people who came into these environments very confident, very competent as well. But because of how the environment is, their confidence has been chipped at.
Yeah.
Their wings have been clipped, and they are former shadows of themselves.
Yeah.
So constant awareness of your environment, the people that you are with, is very important for you to fight these fear of rejection and fear of failure. And also constant reflection, I would say, on your day, the people you're spending time with, because it could be something as simple as when you feel that uneasiness. Where is it coming from? Is it something that you have done? For example, if I could go to let me go to imposter syndrome, much as it has not come up in your question, but when you feel this imposter syndrome, is it because of what you are doing? You feel inept to do it? And if it is so, what can you do to improve on that skill? So it could be something as simple as just improving on that skill, being better at it, and it will go away.
Yeah.
But it could also be the people that you are around. Maybe they are the ones who are making you feel that you do not belong by the words they say, their actions. Do you really need to be around them? And whatever they are saying, is it real or is it perception? So ask the people that you trust, your friends, your family, and share some of these experiences. And you may find that you come off as very confident, but inwardly you feel that you're not. So it could be perception, and maybe you need to focus on your innate, your nature, your internal. So that's what. That's what
and I'm so glad you started with the anchoring. What anchors you? Because then a lot of these underlying issues is where you build your anchor on. And I feel like, who knew a conversation on career will require you to do inner work? Because it's coming out very clearly from the conversation today that without sufficient self-mastery, you're not likely to really, you can thrive, but enjoy your career and find fulfillment is going to be hard. So many light bulb moments. And we'll talk about practical tips in the next episode about how you can be better, bounce back. But I just feel that this is a conversation we weren't told, because we went to school, Rahab, being skilled at the technical. I did communication, so this is what you need to do, blah, 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 blah. But no one laid the foundation. And is that something that's lacking, which I now want to go, before we end this episode, on the organizational, what their role is as organization, what's their, the thing they should do, because practices, what would you advocate for? What have you seen work to create this platform where people feel empowered to also pursue self-mastery? Because in between our meetings and our 100 Zoom meetings, where is self-mastery coming in? Talk to me about the role of organizations and what you've seen and what they could do better.
We have a big role to play as organizations, as managers in those organizations, as staff in those organizations. One of the things I'd say is to create an open environment where people can speak up when they're not comfortable about something or when there's an issue. Also to have feedback mechanisms. It could be, a questionnaire. It could be, I don't know whether people do suggestion boxes anymore, but depending on your space, there's that which works. It could be just having informal conversations where this feedback is being sought. And while we are at it, when it comes to feedback, you need to genuinely want that feedback. Because staff know when it's not genuine. And not being genuine does not mean that you have not acted on my feedback, because staff also know that not everything that is going to be given as feedback will be acted upon.
Yes.
Because it also depends on what the organization prioritizes and so on. But when you're in a meeting and you are seeking feedback from your staff, do you genuinely want that feedback?
Ooh.
Or are you just asking it because you have seen this
Tick a box.
podcast?
Yes.
You have, rather you have listened to this podcast and watched this TED Talk that has told you as a manager you need to seek feedback. So there you are looking for this feedback. But then when someone is talking, you distract them, you change topics. That is not genuine. And staff pick on these things.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a genuineness to it. The other thing would be when it comes to having sessions. Like I remember this was not so much a training as such, but when you have sessions, town halls, let me just say town halls. We had it in our previous organization. Yeah, when you have town halls and people can speak up, having platforms and sessions where staff can be comfortable speaking up. And for those that speak up, because there will always be the quiet ones and there will always be those ones who are the advocates for the rest of staff, not victimizing them, not following them up and expecting them to say a certain thing, just letting people be. Also, managers need to be trained because, like you mentioned earlier, we are so focused on the technical, delivering on the technical, and we do deliver because that is how work is structured.
Yeah.
But managers also need to know the softer side of things. And I feel that when you have a good mix of the two, then people will thrive, people will be themselves. Being open to different personalities, different points of view, and not limiting people to what they can say. I feel this would be an environment that would encourage that self-mastery. People would be themselves, and that is what you would need.
Yeah. And I guess in organizations where we have so many people suffering perfectionism and imposter syndrome, it's a testament to doing the opposite of everything you've said.
Oh, yes.
Because then it can't be like everyone is always holding their breath, not sure what next.
Yeah.
Living in fear before reviews, salary reviews, or performance reviews and all of that.
Yeah.
And easier said than done, Rahab.
Oh, yes.
Easier said than done.
True.
Which is why I wanted also for you just to mention that, because the interesting thing you've alluded to is it's gone back to the people. Who are the people leading these, whether it's HR or leaders, and how are they genuinely, authentically interested?
Yeah.
Everything is just going back to the person.
The person.
The person. So this was we could spend ages and decades talking about this. So today we were just tackling how perfectionism, imposter syndrome shows up in career. Next episode, we want to shine some light at the end of this very dark tunnel, because I promise you there's tips, there's light at the end of this tunnel. So we'll talk about how to overcome this, write the narrative. But once again, thank you. Please do share, like, subscribe. It tells the algorithm that we are onto some really good, wholesome content. But we'll see you next time with Rahab. Bye.
Bye.